Billionaire husband kicks pregnant wife in front of his friends. Her revenge shocked everyone. The music was loud, the laughter was wild, and the smell of expensive cigars filled the billionaire's penthouse. But in the middle of all the noise, the unthinkable happened. Daniel, a man everyone respected, kicked his pregnant wife Rose right in front of his wealthy friends. She crashed against the marble floor, her hands instinctively wrapping around her stomach as gasps echoed through the room. Some of the men laughed nervously. Others shook their heads, but not one person moved to help her. Rose's eyes filled with tears, not just from the pain, but from the shame. She wasn't just hurt, she was broken. The man she had given everything for had chosen to disgrace her in front of strangers. But what Rose didn't know at that moment was this. The same pain that broke her would later give her the fire to rise in a way nobody saw coming. Imagine, a woman kicked to the ground, now building an empire. How did she do it? "Get out of my sight, Rose!" Daniel barked, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. He adjusted his gold wristwatch and smirked at his friends as if kicking his wife was a joke. "She's nothing but dead weight, always whining, always complaining. I can't stand her anymore." His friends chuckled uneasily, sipping their wine, afraid to challenge him. Rose slowly pushed herself up, her body trembling, her lips bleeding. The baby inside her seemed to kick harder, as if reminding her she wasn't alone. She looked at Daniel, searching for even a flicker of the man she married, the man who once whispered promises of forever. But his eyes were cold, sharp, filled with pride. Her voice cracked as she asked, "Daniel, why are you doing this to me?" Instead of answering, he turned to his friends and said, "Look at her. I told you she doesn't deserve this life. She's only here because of pity." His words stung deeper than the kick itself. The party continued, but Rose's heart froze in that moment. Every beat of her chest felt like betrayal. Every laugh from Daniel's friends echoed like thunder inside her. She had walked into the room a wife, but in front of everyone she had been reduced to nothing. As she limped out, clutching her stomach, whispers followed her. Poor woman. She should leave him, but she won't, not with his money. Rose heard it all, and though tears rolled down her cheeks, something inside her shifted. A small voice whispered in her soul, "This is not your end. This is your beginning." What if the woman he called weak was secretly planning his downfall? That night she lay in the guest room, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. Memories of their love flooded her mind. The way Daniel used to bring her flowers when she was just a girl from a poor family. The way he promised to protect her. The way he swore she'd never cry because of him. And now the same man had turned her into an object of shame. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her best friend, Mary. "Rose, I warned you. A man who changes after wealth is a man who never loved you. Be strong. You don't deserve this." Rose's hand trembled as she read it. She wanted to believe Mary was wrong. She wanted to believe Daniel was just drunk, just stressed, just angry. But deep down, she knew the truth. This wasn't the first insult. This wasn't the first slap. But tonight was different. Tonight he showed the world what she meant to him. Nothing. Her tears dried on her face as a new kind of silence filled her heart. It wasn't weakness anymore. It was strength being born. Quiet, dangerous strength. And in that moment, Rose made a silent vow. One day he will regret everything. One day the world will not laugh at me. One day I will rise so high that even Daniel's money cannot reach me. She didn't know how. She didn't know when, but she knew it would happen. The night closed in around her. The city lights glowed through the window, whispering secrets of power, survival, and revenge. And though Rose felt broken now, fate was only just opening the first page of her story. Because what Daniel didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the woman he kicked tonight would become the very storm that would one day destroy him. The next morning, Rose woke up with swollen eyes and aching bones. Her body felt heavy, but her heart felt heavier. The mansion that once felt like a palace now felt like a prison. Every corner, every golden chandelier, every expensive chair whispered betrayal. She could still hear the echoes of Daniel's voice from the night before. "She's only here because of pity." Those words refused to leave her mind. They repeated like a curse. Rose dragged herself to the mirror. Her lip was cracked, her face bruised, but the worst wound was invisible. The shame. The reflection staring back at her didn't look like a billionaire's wife. It looked like a stranger, a broken woman begging to remember who she used to be before Daniel's money and lies. Downstairs, the sound of laughter reached her ears. Daniel was already awake, entertaining his friends with jokes over breakfast as if nothing had happened. As if the kick, the insults, the disgrace were all just part of his fun. Rose slowly walked down the stairs, one hand on the railing, the other on her stomach. She entered the dining hall and silence immediately filled the room. The men stared at her. Some looked guilty, others curious. Daniel didn't flinch. He simply poured himself another glass of orange juice and said, "What are you doing here, Rose? Shouldn't you be resting? Or are you here to embarrass me again?" Her lips trembled, but she forced herself to speak. "Daniel, I'm your wife. I'm carrying your child. Do you hate me so much that you can treat me like trash in front of everyone?" Daniel leaned back in his chair, a wicked smile tugging at his lips. "Wife, don't make me laugh. You think a ring and a baby make you important? Without me, you are nothing. You were a poor girl from the slums, Rose. If I didn't pick you, you would still be selling vegetables on the roadside. Don't forget who gave you this life." His words stabbed her deeper than knives. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. Not this time. She tightened her grip on the railing, steadying herself. Something in her spirit refused to break. The men around the table shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a middle-aged businessman with kind eyes, cleared his throat and said softly, "Daniel, maybe you should calm down. She's pregnant. Don't let anger destroy your family." Daniel's gaze turned sharp, his pride boiling. "Stay out of this, Patrick. My marriage is none of your business." He slammed his hand on the table, making the plates rattle. Rose turned and left the room quietly, her dignity bleeding, but her silence louder than any words. Later that afternoon, as Daniel drove off in his black SUV with two of his friends, Rose sat alone in the garden. The flowers around her were bright and full of life, but she felt empty inside. She touched her stomach, whispering to her unborn baby, "I will protect you. Even if your father hates me, I will never let you feel unwanted. I will fight for us." Her phone buzzed again. It was Mary, her best friend. "Rose, I'm coming over. I can't sit and watch you suffer like this." Within an hour, Mary arrived. She was a bold woman with fire in her eyes, the kind of friend who would fight the world for Rose. As soon as she saw the bruises, her face darkened. "Rose, this is not marriage. This is hell. Why are you still here? He will destroy you if you don't leave." Rose shook her head. "Mary, it's not that simple. Where would I go? How would I raise this baby alone?
The world will laugh at me.
They'll say I only loved him for his money." Mary held her hands firmly. "Let them laugh. At least you'll be free. At least you'll be alive. Rose, don't you see? You're holding on to a man who already let go of you. Daniel doesn't love you anymore. He loves his pride, his money, his power. But you still have yourself. Don't let him kill that." Rose's chest tightened as tears streamed down her face. "I still love him, Mary. I keep hoping he'll change." Mary sighed, her voice gentle but firm. "And while you keep hoping, he keeps breaking you. You don't need his change. You need your own. One day, Rose, he will regret everything. But that day will only come if you find your strength first." Those words settled deep in Rose's heart. They burned, but they also lit a spark. That evening, Daniel returned drunk and laughing with his friends again. Rose didn't argue. She didn't cry. She served dinner silently, her eyes calm, her heart steady. For the first time, Daniel noticed her silence. He squinted at her, trying to read her. "What's with the quiet, Rose? You planning something?" She didn't answer. She simply looked at him with eyes that no longer begged, no longer pleaded. Eyes that promised something he couldn't yet understand. And in that silence, something shifted. Daniel laughed it off. But a strange unease crept into him. For the first time, he felt that maybe, just maybe, Rose wasn't as broken as he thought. That night, while he slept, Rose stayed awake. She sat by the window, staring at the city lights, her mind racing. Mary's words echoed inside her. One day he will regret everything. And with a steady hand on her stomach, Rose whispered, "That day is coming." The silence of the mansion was heavy. But inside Rose's heart, a new sound was rising. A heartbeat of strength, of revenge, of a woman who had finally realized that her pain would one day become her power. The week after, the party felt like walking through fire for Rose. Daniel barely spoke to her except to insult her. At night, he stayed out late, and when he returned, he smelled of perfume that wasn't hers. She didn't need to ask. She already knew. One Saturday afternoon, Daniel hosted another lavish gathering in their mansion. The swimming pool glittered under the sun, music blasted, and women in expensive dresses filled the compound. Rose stayed inside, her swollen feet resting on the floor, her heart heavy but calm. She didn't want to show her face. She didn't want to face the whispers again. But Daniel had other plans. He barged into her room without knocking. He was dressed in a white linen shirt, gold chains on his neck, sunglasses resting on his head. He looked at her with disdain. "Why are you hiding in here like a ghost? Come downstairs. People are asking for you." Rose swallowed hard. "Daniel, I can't. My body is tired. I need to rest." Daniel's jaw tightened. He stepped closer and hissed, "Don't you dare embarrass me again. If you don't come out, I will drag you in front of everyone myself." Her heart pounded, but she obeyed. Slowly she stood and followed him outside. The moment she stepped into the garden, silence fell. The crowd turned, eyes scanning her bruised face and fragile body. Daniel wrapped his arm around her waist, pretending to be the loving husband. "Everyone, meet my beautiful wife Rose," he announced with a smug smile. "She insists on looking simple, but she's the queen of this house." Rose forced a smile, but her chest burned. His words sounded sweet, but they dripped with poison. The crowd clapped lightly, but the whispers began again. "She looks weak. Poor woman. Why does he treat her like that?" One woman, bold and reckless, stepped forward. Her name was Cynthia, one of Daniel's business associate's girlfriends. She smirked and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Daniel, with all your money, why stick with this one? You deserve someone who shines like you." The crowd chuckled, waiting for Daniel's reaction. Rose's heart stopped. She prayed just this once that he would defend her, stand by her, prove that the man she married was still somewhere inside him. But Daniel laughed, a loud, mocking laugh. He turned to Cynthia and said, "You know, sometimes I ask myself the same thing." The crowd roared with laughter. Rose felt the world spin. Her legs trembled. She clutched her stomach as tears blurred her vision. In that moment, the man she once loved didn't just break her. He buried her alive in shame. Without another word, she turned and walked back inside. The laughter followed her like shadows. In the bedroom, she collapsed on the floor, her body shaking violently. She wanted to scream, but the pain was too heavy. She wanted to hate Daniel, but her heart still clung to the love she once had for him. That was the cruelest part, loving a man who had already destroyed her. Hours passed. The party ended. Daniel stormed into the room, drunk and proud. "Why did you walk out? Do you know how foolish you made me look?" Rose lifted her face, her tears shining in the dim light. "Foolish Daniel, you laughed when they mocked me. You shamed me in front of strangers. I gave you everything and you treat me like nothing." Daniel's face twisted in anger. He grabbed her wrist tightly. "Everything. Don't fool yourself. I made you. Without me, you are nobody. If you can't handle this life, leave. But don't forget, you can't survive without me." He shoved her hand away and stumbled into bed, falling asleep instantly, leaving Rose on the floor, broken and shaking. That night, something inside her finally snapped. She cried until her chest hurt. But by the time dawn arrived, her tears were gone. Her pain had turned into something sharper, something unbreakable. She remembered Mary's words. "One day he will regret everything, but that day will only come if you find your strength first." Rose stood in front of the mirror again. Her face was tired, her eyes red, but beneath the pain was a new fire, a fire that whispered, "This is not the end. This is the beginning." She pressed her hand against her stomach, whispering to her unborn child, "Your father thinks I'm weak, but he has no idea. He thinks I will break, but I will rise, and when I do, he will watch me shine without him." The mansion was silent, but Rose's heart was no longer quiet. A storm was building. A storm no wealth, no power, no pride could stop. And for the first time since her world began to collapse, Rose smiled. Not because she was healed, but because she finally knew Daniel's betrayal had not ended her. It had only awakened her. The morning after the shaming party, Rose woke up to the sound of Daniel's phone ringing. He was still asleep, his arm flung carelessly across the bed. She glanced at the screen. It was a woman's name she didn't recognize. Her heart tightened, but she didn't answer. She simply placed the phone back on the table, her mind swirling with thoughts. Daniel had been careless lately. He flaunted his affairs like trophies, no longer hiding his betrayals. And yet the world saw him as a successful, charming billionaire. Nobody knew the monster that lived behind the mansion's golden gates. Rose sat at the edge of the bed, her hand resting on her swollen stomach. She whispered softly, "I will not let you grow up in shame. I will not let your father's pride be the only story you know." Later that day, Daniel left for a business meeting. The mansion was quiet. Rose walked into his study, a place she rarely entered. Papers were scattered on the desk. Business contracts, bank statements, shares in different companies. She stared at them, overwhelmed. For years, Daniel had locked her out of everything, telling her she was too simple to understand business, but now something inside her refused to stay ignorant. She picked up a file and began reading. At first, the words felt like a foreign language. But slowly, as she flipped through page after page, she began to see patterns, names, accounts, figures. Something told her this was the beginning of knowledge she would one day need. Just then, the door opened. Mary walked in quietly. "Rose, what are you doing in here?" Rose quickly closed the file, guilt flashing across her face. "I was just looking." Mary walked closer, her eyes sharp. "No, you weren't just looking. You were searching. Tell me, Rose, are you finally ready to stop being his shadow?" Rose's chest rose and fell heavily. She looked at her friend, her eyes trembling but fierce. "Mary, I don't know how, but I can't keep living like this. I need to stand on my own. I need to be more than just Daniel's wife." Mary smiled faintly, though her eyes were full of seriousness. "Then you need to start preparing. Stop crying. Stop waiting for his pity. Learn, watch, build yourself, even in silence. Because one day, Rose, that knowledge will be your weapon." Those words planted deeper roots in Rose's heart. She nodded slowly. For the first time, she wasn't just thinking about leaving. She was thinking about rising. That evening, Daniel returned. He threw his jacket on the chair and poured himself a drink. "Rose," he called out, his tone mocking. "I'm traveling to Cape Town for a week. Don't bother calling me. I need space from your tears and complaints." She stood in the doorway, her hands clasped together. "Daniel, do you hate me so much? What did I ever do to deserve this?" He laughed bitterly, sipping his drink. "You existed. That's what you did. You think I owe you loyalty? Wake up, Rose. Love doesn't buy private jets. Affection doesn't close million-dollar deals. You were a mistake, and one day you'll thank me for reminding you of that." Her heart clenched, but she didn't cry. "Not this." She simply whispered. "One day, Daniel, you'll regret every word." He smirked, unconcerned. "We'll see." Then he walked away, humming as if her pain was nothing more than background noise. That night, Rose sat by the window again. The city lights flickered in the distance, each one reminding her that the world outside was bigger than this mansion, bigger than Daniel's shadow. She opened her small diary and began to write. "I will not be broken. I will not be silent. I will learn. I will rise. And when the time comes, he will see me not as his victim, but as the woman he could never destroy." As she closed the diary, she felt her baby kick. It was as if the child inside her was agreeing, urging her forward. A soft smile touched her lips for the first time in weeks. The next morning, Rose did something she hadn't done in months. She dressed up not in the dull gowns Daniel preferred, but in a simple, elegant dress that hugged her gently. She tied her hair neatly and applied a touch of lip gloss. When she looked at the mirror, she didn't see the broken woman anymore. She saw a glimpse of the girl Daniel first fell in love with. The girl who had dreams of her own before wealth and power chained her down. When she walked into the kitchen, the staff stared at her in surprise. One of the maids whispered, "Madam looks different today, stronger." Rose smiled softly. She wasn't there yet, but she was on her way. That afternoon, she called Mary. "I need your help," she said firmly. "Teach me what I need to know. Teach me how to stand." Mary's voice lit up with pride. "Finally, Rose, this is the first step. And trust me, Daniel won't even see it coming." And just like that, the silence of defeat began to fade. Rose was still hurting, still bruised, still carrying scars. But now she carried something else too. Something far more powerful. Hope. And deep inside her chest, beneath the bruises and broken promises, a fire burned brighter than ever before. The same fire that would one day turn her pain into her greatest weapon. Daniel's trip to Cape Town was supposed to last a week, but he stayed away for almost a month. He called once or twice, only to bark instructions at the staff or insult Rose for asking about him. Most of the time, he ignored her completely. Every day, Rose tried to hold herself together. She read the files in Daniel's study when no one was around. She wrote in her diary at night, recording every bruise, every insult, every moment of betrayal. The pain still weighed heavy on her, but with Mary's constant encouragement, she began to see it differently. Mary visited often, bringing books about business, finance, and self-growth. Rose devoured them, slowly piecing together knowledge Daniel never wanted her to have. Sometimes she read while holding her belly, whispering to her baby, "We will not be weak. We will not be victims. We will rise together. But while Rose was trying to rebuild herself, Daniel was busy destroying what little was left of their marriage. One Friday evening, Rose received an anonymous message on her phone. The words hit her like lightning. Check the news. Your husband isn't in Cape Town, he's in Dubai with another woman. Her hands shook as she opened the link attached. There he was, Daniel, grinning in front of flashing cameras at a luxury hotel, his arm wrapped around a stunning woman in a red dress. They looked like royalty, like a power couple. The headline read, "Billionaire Daniel Scott seen with mystery woman at Dubai Gala." Rose's chest tightened, her vision blurring. The world knew now. Her shame was no longer private. It was public. She dropped the phone, collapsing into a chair. For hours she couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. How much more could her heart endure? By the time Daniel returned home days later, Rose was no longer the same. She had no tears left to give him, only silence. He swaggered into the mansion, sunglasses on, suitcase in hand. "Where's my welcome, Rose? No hug, no kiss. Or did you enjoy your pity party while I was gone?" She stood in the hallway, her arms crossed, her voice steady, cold. "How was Dubai?" For a split second, Daniel froze. His eyes narrowed. "Who told you that?" Rose didn't flinch. "It doesn't matter who told me. I saw the pictures. The world saw the pictures." Daniel smirked, adjusting his watch. "And so what? You think you're the only woman who wants me? You should be grateful I even keep you here. Don't act like you didn't know who I was when you married me. Power attracts options, Rose. Learn to live with it." Her fist clenched at her side. "No, Daniel. Power doesn't change a man's heart. It only reveals it." For the first time, he didn't have a comeback. He stared at her, his smirk fading. Something in her eyes unsettled him. They weren't the eyes of a begging wife anymore. They were the eyes of a woman who had seen the truth. That night, Rose made her first bold move. She called Mary and whispered, "I'm ready." Mary arrived the next morning with a laptop. "If you want to break free, you need money of your own," she said. "Daniel has kept you in the dark, but you can start small. Use your knowledge, use your mind, use your pain. Build something he can't take away." Rose hesitated, fear gnawing at her. "But what if he finds out? He'll destroy me." Mary took her hand, squeezing it firmly. "Rose, he's already destroying you. Isn't it better to fight back than to keep bleeding?" Those words echoed in her chest. That night, after Daniel left for yet another late-night meeting, Rose sat with Mary in the study. They researched businesses she could start quietly, something small, something manageable. Rose remembered her childhood, helping her mother sell vegetables at the roadside market. She had always been good with people, good at organizing, and then it clicked. "Mary, what if I start a food business, home catering, healthy meals for working families? I know the recipes. I know the taste people crave. And with your help, I can learn the business side." Mary's face lit up. "Yes, Rose, that's perfect. Start where you're strong. Build from there. You don't need Daniel's billions. You just need your courage." Rose smiled faintly. For the first time in months, she felt alive. Over the next few weeks, she secretly put plans into motion. With the help of one loyal maid, she tested recipes in the kitchen, packaging them neatly. Mary helped her set up an online page under a different name. Orders began to trickle in slowly, and though the money was small, it was hers. It was freedom, piece by piece. One evening, as Rose served dinner, Daniel barely looked at her. He scrolled on his phone, chuckling at messages from another woman. He thought she was still weak, still broken, still begging. But what Daniel didn't know was that the woman standing in front of him had already taken her first step out of his shadow. And with every secret order, every satisfied customer, every coin she earned, Rose's chains loosened. She was no longer just Daniel's wife. She was becoming Rose, the woman who would one day rise so high that Daniel would be forced to look up. And when that day came, his pride, his arrogance, and his cruelty would no longer protect him. The mansion glittered with lights that night. Daniel had thrown yet another lavish party, this time to celebrate a new business deal. Rose stood in the corner of the living room watching him laugh loudly, his arm casually wrapped around a woman who wasn't her. Cameras flashed, music thundered, and Daniel shone like a king in his palace. But Rose wasn't the same broken woman she had been weeks ago. Beneath her calm expression, fire simmered. She had learned to smile without showing her wounds, to nod without showing her heartache. While Daniel paraded his pride for the world to see, Rose was building hers quietly in the shadows. Her food business, under a different name, was slowly growing. Orders came daily, and the maid who helped her now had 2 assistants. Mary managed the accounts, teaching Rose how to balance profits and reinvest wisely. Every small success gave Rose strength. Every happy customer gave her hope. Daniel had no idea. He thought she was still helpless, still chained to his wealth. But what he didn't know was that every secret coin Rose earned was a brick in the wall of her freedom. Rose. Daniel's voice cut through her thoughts. He waved at her from across the room. "Come here." She walked over, her steps graceful, her smile controlled. Daniel pulled her closer, then turned to his friends. "This is my wife. Doesn't she look beautiful tonight?" She finally dressed like she belongs here. His friends chuckled, raising their glasses. Rose forced a smile, though her stomach turned at his words. Daniel wasn't praising her. He was mocking her, reminding everyone that he owned her image, her life. One of the men leaned closer, whispering, "Daniel, you're lucky. Many women would kill to be in her position. She's loyal even after everything." Daniel smirked, sipping his drink. "Loyal, please. She knows without me she's nothing. She wouldn't survive a day outside this mansion." The laughter stung, but Rose didn't flinch. She looked at Daniel, her eyes steady, her smile soft but sharp. Inside, her vow grew stronger. "One day, Daniel, you will eat those words." Later that night, when the party ended and the mansion was silent, Daniel stumbled into the bedroom drunk. He threw his shoes off carelessly and collapsed on the bed. Rose sat by the window, staring at the city lights. Without looking at her, Daniel muttered, "You're lucky, Rose. Do you know how many women want me? I keep you here out of pity. Be grateful." Rose turned her head slowly. For once, her voice didn't tremble. "Pity, Daniel, I don't need your pity. And one day you will see that I am not the weak woman you think I am." He laughed sleepily. "We'll see about that." But his laugh didn't shake her anymore. His words no longer had the power to crush her spirit. The next day, Rose's business had its biggest order yet. An office needed catering for an event. Mary and the staff worked tirelessly, and by evening the client was so impressed that they promised more contracts. For the first time in months, Rose felt joy that wasn't tied to Daniel. It was hers, earned with her own strength. As she counted the money that night, she whispered, "This is only the beginning." But just as her fire grew, danger lurked around the corner. One evening, Daniel came home earlier than usual. He walked into the kitchen expecting to find Rose sitting idly as always. Instead, he found her supervising the maids, checking neatly packed food boxes. His eyes narrowed. "What is this?" he demanded. Rose froze. The air grew heavy. Mary stepped forward quickly, her voice calm. "Oh, they're just extra meals for the staff's families." Rose wanted to make sure nothing goes to waste. Daniel studied the boxes suspiciously. Rose forced a smile. "Yes, Daniel, just making sure the food doesn't spoil." He grunted, unconvinced but too tired to argue. He turned and left, muttering, "You better not waste my money on nonsense." The moment he left, Rose's knees buckled. Mary grabbed her arm. "That was close. Rose, you need to be careful. If he finds out, he'll try to destroy this." Rose straightened, fire burning in her chest. "Let him try. He can break my bones, but he can't kill my spirit." She gestured at the food boxes. "This is my weapon. One day it will be my escape." And from that night, she worked harder. More orders came in. More money flowed quietly into an account Daniel didn't know existed. Her secret empire was growing in the shadows of his pride. Daniel, meanwhile, grew bolder. He brought women into the mansion openly, laughing as if daring Rose to complain. He thought her silence was weakness. But what he didn't know was that her silence was strategy, because while he was busy feeding his pride, Rose was feeding her future. And soon the man who thought she was nothing would discover the storm he had created. The night was heavy with thunder, rain pounding against the glass walls of the mansion. Rose sat on the bed, holding her diary close, her pen scratching out painful truths she could never say aloud. Each word was a scar on paper. He broke me in front of strangers. He parades other women while I carry his child. One day this pain will become my weapon. The door slammed open. Daniel staggered in, reeking of alcohol and perfume. His shirt was half-buttoned, lipstick stains across his collar. His eyes were cold, his jaw tight. "Rose," he barked. "Why do you always look at me like that? Like I'm the devil. I gave you everything. Yet you sit here judging me with those eyes." She closed her diary quietly and whispered, Daniel, I'm not judging you. I'm just tired. Tired? He scoffed, stepping closer. You're tired? You're useless, Rose. You don't even make me proud anymore. You think carrying my child makes you special? You're weak. Before she could respond, his hand struck her across the face. She fell to the floor, the sting burning her skin, her body trembling. She cradled her stomach, terrified for her baby. Daniel, please, she begged, her voice breaking. But he only sneered. You better learn your place, Rose, or one day I'll throw you out like trash. He stumbled onto the bed, falling asleep within minutes, as if nothing had happened. Rose lay on the floor, tears mixing with the rain sounds outside. Her face burned, her heart ached, but something deeper shifted. She whispered to herself, "This is the last time he will ever break me." The next morning, Mary rushed over after hearing what happened. When she saw the bruises, her eyes filled with rage. "Enough is enough, Rose. If you stay silent, he'll kill you. You need people, allies. If you can't fight him alone, then build your army." Rose's voice was weak, but her eyes were steady. "Who will stand with me, Mary? Everyone fears him. Everyone worships his money." Mary leaned closer. "Not everyone. There are people Daniel has stepped on. People who smile at his face but bleed behind his back. You just need to find them." Those words stuck with Rose. That week, she started paying closer attention. She listened to the whispers of the staff, the complaints of the drivers, the frustration of the workers. Daniel treated like disposable tools. One day, she overheard one of Daniel's managers arguing on the phone in the garden. The man, Mr. Brad, was furious. "Daniel doesn't respect anyone. He takes credit for our work. He cuts salaries without warning, and he thinks we're his slaves. But one day his pride will bury him." Rose approached him cautiously. "Mr. Brad." He looked startled, embarrassed. She had heard. "Madam, forgive me. I didn't mean." She shook her head. "Don't apologize. You're right. He's destroying people, not just me. But you're not alone. I know how it feels." Mr. Brad looked at her surprised. Then he lowered his voice. "Madam, if you ever need help, call me. I may not have money like him, but I know his business secrets. I know how he cheats people. If the day comes when you want to stand against him, I will be there." For the first time, Rose realized she wasn't entirely alone. There were cracks in Daniel's empire, cracks she could one day use. Meanwhile, her food business was thriving. The orders grew larger. The profits doubled. She used part of the money to quietly support a few of the staff in the mansion, winning their loyalty. The maids whispered among themselves, "Madame Rose is different. She cares. She helps us." Daniel noticed none of it. He was too busy flaunting his wealth, drowning in pride. One evening, as Rose tucked herself into bed, Mary called, "Rose, I've been thinking. You're not just surviving anymore, you're building. But soon you'll need to choose. Will you keep hiding, or will you prepare to strike?" Rose's hand rested on her stomach. Her baby kicked as if reminding her of the future she was fighting for. Her voice was firm when she replied, "I'm preparing. I've been weak too long. But when I strike, it won't just be for me. It'll be for everyone he's crushed. And Daniel will never see it coming." She closed her eyes, her mind racing with plans. She saw flashes of Daniel's pride, his laughter, his cruelty, and she saw them crumbling like glass under the weight of his own arrogance. Because Daniel had mistaken her silence for surrender. But what he didn't know was that her silence was the sound of a storm gathering, and when that storm finally broke, it would wash away everything he thought he controlled. The city glittered under neon lights as Daniel walked into yet another business dinner, surrounded by men who bowed at his presence. But behind their polite smiles, envy and resentment lingered. Daniel didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't care. He was too consumed by his own pride to see the storm brewing against him. Back in the mansion, Rose sat at her desk staring at her diary. But tonight she wasn't writing pain. She was writing plans, names of Daniel's enemies, accounts she had discovered from documents he left carelessly on his desk, connections she could use later. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was quietly learning how to play his game. Her food business had now expanded. What started with small orders was turning into contracts with offices and small events. Mary helped her secure a hidden account where the profits were stored safely. The business had a name now, Rose's Delight. Only a few trusted people knew she was behind it. Each coin she earned made her stronger. Each satisfied client whispered that she had something Daniel could never take away, her own identity. One afternoon, as she supervised the staff in the kitchen, one of the drivers approached her cautiously. "Madam Rose, I don't mean to intrude, but thank you. Last week, when you gave money for my son's hospital bill, you saved his life. I will never forget." Rose smiled softly. "You don't owe me anything. Just remember, kindness is not weakness." The driver lowered his voice. "Madam, if you ever need help, call me. Many of us, we are tired of how the master treats us. We respect you more than him." Her chest tightened. The staff, the people Daniel treated like shadows, they were beginning to see her differently. And with each act of kindness, she wasn't just building loyalty. She was building an army. Meanwhile, Daniel's pride began to betray him. His reckless spending, his arrogance in business meetings, his disregard for contracts, cracks began to show. One evening, Rose overheard him shouting in his study. "Don't threaten me," he barked into the phone. "I don't care about your lawyers. I own this city. Nobody dares to touch me." But the moment he hung up, he slammed his glass against the wall. His face, usually so smug, was pale with worry. Rose watched from the shadows, her heart strangely calm. Daniel wasn't as invincible as he pretended. That night, when he stormed into bed, she whispered quietly, "Daniel, be careful. Pride can destroy even kings." He glared at her. "Don't speak in riddles, Rose. Without me, you'd be nothing. Don't ever forget that." She smiled faintly. "One day you'll see I was never nothing." Daniel scoffed and turned away, but her words lingered in the air like a prophecy. Weeks later, Rose received unexpected news. Her catering business had been recommended for a high-profile corporate event. It was the biggest order yet, one that would put her name on the map if it succeeded. She was nervous, but Mary reminded her, "This is your chance, Rose. This is how you start stepping out of his shadow." On the day of the event, Rose stayed hidden behind the name she had created. She supervised quietly, ensuring everything went smoothly. The clients were impressed, praising Rose's delight as if it was a miracle discovery. By the end of the night, she had secured contracts for months to come. As she counted the money later, her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness but of triumph. "This," she whispered to her baby, "is our beginning." But while Rose was rising in silence, Daniel was unknowingly digging his own grave. His enemies in the business world were growing bolder. Partners he had cheated were gathering evidence. Politicians he had bribed were beginning to turn against him. And Rose, with every diary entry, with every piece of information she collected, knew that the day would come when all of it would collapse. One night she sat by her window, the city lights glowing in the distance. Mary's voice echoed in her mind. "Build your army." She thought of Mr. Brad, the driver, the staff, her clients. Piece by piece, she wasn't just surviving. She was building her future. And when that future came, Daniel would face something more dangerous than enemies in the boardroom. He would face the quiet, unbreakable strength of the woman he thought was powerless. The storm was no longer coming. The storm was already here. The news broke like wildfire. Billionaire Daniel Scott under investigation for fraud and tax evasion. Every channel carried the story. Social media exploded with videos of Daniel shouting at reporters as he was escorted out of his office by government officials. His once spotless reputation was now stained. Investors began to pull out. Partners refused his calls. And for the first time, Daniel looked like what he had always denied being. Just a man, not a god. Rose watched the news from the living room, her baby kicking gently in her womb. She didn't smile, but her silence spoke louder than any laughter. She whispered softly, "Pride always falls." Daniel stormed into the mansion that evening, his shirt soaked in sweat, his eyes bloodshot with rage. "Rose," he bellowed. She walked out calmly, holding her diary in one hand. "Yes, Daniel." His chest heaved as he pointed at her. "Don't you dare look at me like that. Do you think this is funny? Do you think I'll lose everything? I'm Daniel Scott. Nobody can touch me." Rose tilted her head slightly, her voice soft but sharp. "You're not untouchable, Daniel. You never were. You've hurt too many people. You've built your empire on broken hearts and crushed souls. Now the cracks are showing." He froze, staring at her as if seeing her for the first time. Her voice wasn't weak anymore. It carried weight. It carried truth. He laughed bitterly, trying to shake off the chill her words left. "Don't get comfortable, Rose. I'll fix this. I'll always rise." But deep inside, Daniel knew this time rising wouldn't be easy. The days that followed were chaos. The government froze his accounts. His luxury cars were seized. Paparazzi camped outside the mansion, waiting for every move. Former friends disappeared. Even the women he flaunted abandoned him overnight. And in the middle of it all was Rose, quiet, watching, stronger than ever. Her catering business was booming now. The corporate event had given her visibility, and orders flowed daily. While Daniel's empire crumbled, Rose's was rising silently. She still kept it hidden from him, but her confidence grew with each passing day. One afternoon, Daniel sat in the study, his hands buried in his hair, his phone buzzing with unanswered calls. Rose walked in, her steps calm, her voice steady. "Daniel," she said, "you need to face the truth. You can't bully or bribe your way out this time." He looked up at her, his eyes red with anger and desperation. "And what do you know about truth, Rose? You're nothing but a burden. If I hadn't picked you from the gutter, you'd still be selling tomatoes on the roadside." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "And yet, even from the roadside, I had more dignity than you do now." The words pierced him. For once, he had no answer. That night, Rose met Mary at a small cafe downtown. She wore a plain dress and no jewelry, blending in with the crowd. They sat in the corner, speaking in hushed voices. "Rose," Mary said, "this is your moment. Daniel is weak. His enemies are circling. If you step forward now, you won't just free yourself. You'll stand on top of everything he thought he owned." Rose's eyes glistened, but they were not filled with tears. They were filled with fire. "I don't want his money, Mary. I don't want his empire. What I want is for him to feel everything he made me feel. Rejected, shamed, powerless. Only then will he understand." Mary leaned forward. "And you're ready to do it?" Rose nodded. "Yes, it's time." The following week, Daniel's worst nightmare unfolded. Several of his staff members, people he had underpaid, insulted and abused, came forward with evidence against him. Documents leaked to the press. Stories of his pride spread like wildfire, and hidden among the shadows of those voices was Rose. She had been quietly feeding information through her allies, Mr. Brad, the driver, even the loyal maids. The very people Daniel thought beneath him had become the cracks that shattered his crown. One evening, Daniel sat alone in the living room, surrounded by silence. No friends, no women, no calls, just silence. Rose walked in carrying a tray of tea. She placed it gently on the table in front of him. "Drink," she said calmly. He looked up at her, his pride wounded, his voice hollow. "Rose, do you enjoy this, watching me fall?" She looked at him for a long moment, then whispered, "No, Daniel, I don't enjoy it, but I endured it, and now you are enduring it too." He lowered his head, his hands trembling. For the first time, the king looked like a beggar, and Rose, standing tall above him, realized the truth. She had already won, but her final blow, the one that would end his pride forever, was still to come. The once glittering mansion was silent. Dust gathered on furniture. Weeds crept through the garden, and the staff had mostly left. Daniel sat in the living room, his head buried in his hands, his once flawless suit wrinkled and stained. The proud billionaire was now a man drowning in shame. His empire had collapsed, his accounts frozen, his businesses under investigation. His friends gone. The newspapers that once praised him now mocked him. From riches to ruin. The fall of Daniel Scott. Rose stood by the window, watching him quietly. She wasn't the same woman he used to kick and mock. Her dress was simple yet elegant, her posture confident. The glow on her face wasn't from wealth. It was from strength. She finally spoke. "Daniel, do you remember the night you kicked me in front of your friends? Do you remember how you laughed when they mocked me?" He lifted his head slowly, his eyes hollow. "Rose, please don't remind me. I've lost everything." Her voice was calm, but it cut sharper than knives. "No, Daniel, you haven't lost everything. You lost yourself long before the money disappeared, and you thought I was nothing without you, but look at me now." At that moment, Mary walked in with a stack of documents. She placed them on the table. Daniel's eyes widened. "What is this?" Mary smiled faintly. "Evidence, testimonies, leaks. The same cracks that brought you down. You thought you owned everyone, but they chose Rose." Daniel's chest heaved as he looked at Rose. You did this." She met his gaze firmly. "No, Daniel. You did this to yourself. I just stopped covering your sins." Silence filled the room. For the first time in his life, Daniel had no power, no pride, no weapons left. Rose stepped closer, her hand resting gently on her stomach. "You told me I was nothing without you. But today I stand tall without your name, without your money, without your pity. I built something of my own. And unlike you, I didn't destroy people to rise. I lifted them with me." Daniel's lips trembled. His pride wanted to speak, but his shame sealed his tongue. Tears welled in his eyes, but he quickly wiped them away, unwilling to let her see. Rose turned to leave, her voice calm but final. This mansion, this empire, this shadow of yours, it no longer holds me. I choose freedom. I choose dignity. I choose myself. She walked out with Mary by her side, the echo of her steps heavy with finality. Outside, a black SUV waited. The driver, loyal to Rose now, opened the door. As she stepped in, the press swarmed, cameras flashing. For the first time, the world saw her, not as Daniel's wife, not as his victim, but as Rose, the woman who survived shame and turned it into power. A reporter shouted, Madam Rose, do you have any words for your husband in his downfall? She paused, her hand gently resting on her baby bump. Then, with a calm, steady voice, she said, Tell him, when you kick someone to the ground, don't forget they might rise higher than you ever dreamed. The crowd erupted. Her words trended across the nation within hours. That night, while Daniel sat alone in his empty mansion, Rose stood on a stage at her catering company's launch event. The hall was filled with clients, employees, and well-wishers. Mary stood proudly beside her. Rose took the microphone, her eyes glistening. I was once told I was nothing, that without wealth I had no value. But I stand here today to tell you all, your worth is not defined by anyone else. It is defined by how you rise after being broken. Never let rejection kill you. Never let shame silence you. Use your pain as fire, because when you do, nobody can stop you. The hall roared with applause. At that moment, Rose wasn't just a survivor. She was a symbol, a woman who had faced betrayal, neglect, rejection, and turned it into strength, dignity, and empowerment. Daniel watched her speech from a small television in his dim living room. His hands trembled as regret suffocated him. He whispered softly, his voice breaking, I destroyed the only person who truly loved me. But it was too late, because Rose had already closed the chapter. And as the applause echoed across the city, her new life began. Not as Daniel's shadow, but as Rose. The woman who rose above betrayal, claimed her power, and taught the world that revenge is best served with success. Rose walked away from pain into power. Daniel's pride ended in loneliness and regret, while Rose's strength built a legacy of dignity, resilience, and self-love. The story ends not with bitterness, but with triumph, showing that the greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's rising so high that they can never touch you again.